So very good evening, greetings from GIBS Business School, Bengaluru, India, to all my viewers online who are live and also who will be looking at me at the recorded version in the YouTube, extending my heartfelt welcome to everyone. Well, innovation, research, and entrepreneurship has always been a backbone of our country. The kind of ecosystem that we have developed in the last one decade, we could actually see how India has transformed itself. And undoubtedly, considering this absolute fact, GIBS was all happy to launch a program named IRE, which stands for Innovation, Research, and Entrepreneurship, way back, 5 years back, wherein the students are nurtured to become tomorrow's leader, to become tomorrow's entrepreneur. And that's what exactly the country needs as well. So we engage students through multiple platforms through IRE. And one such platform is IRE Talks, where we also invite the stalwarts who have contributed significantly to this domain across the world. So we have hosted almost 100 plus sessions like this across all the continent. And today, I'm all happy and excited to have my good friend from Belgium, Mr. Robin de Kock. So, as we are mentioning before the start of this session, that the amount of work that he has contributed to this, I was literally behind Robin, requesting him for this particular session. And today it's all happening. I'm so very happy. By doing this, we are not only giving you the understanding on the subject matter, but also on the global experiences, a global engagement. When people like him talk about it, I'm sure he gives a lot of global touch to it, which makes our budding entrepreneurs understand what exactly this IRE stands for in a global context. So today we are here on a very interesting topic. We are named it as the art and science of winning pitches. What I also observed, Robin, is that apart from being one of the stalwart professor, he's also the amazing author, a very renowned author from Belgium. His recent book was indeed a bestseller, Mastering the Pitch, Science-Based Strategies for Success, which really impressed me because it all starts with a pitch. Your entrepreneurial journey starts with a pitch. Whether you're pitching for an angel investor or any of the VCs, venture capitalists, or whether you're pitching it for your clients, it all starts with this. And to understand this concept, I don't think there could be anyone apart from Robin de Kock who has significantly contributed to this. So I requested him on this topic. I requested him on the topic that which is his favorite, and he has written a book on that. So yes, today we are all here on behalf of all the students out here and all the faculties and the top management of GIBS Business School. I'm extending my heartfelt welcome to Robin de Kock. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. It's indeed a pleasure to host you. And as I mentioned, I really look forward to hosting you in my campus very soon as well. So that's it from my end. All over to you. And yes, I'm all excited. Equally, my students are.
Okay, thank you so much for the invitation. It's really an honor to also speak in your series of talks. So let's directly dive into it. I have some slides with me, so I'm going to share them now. And normally you can see them now. So let's put it on viewer. I also would encourage people to share their thoughts in the chat. So if you have any questions or if you have any remarks, answers, I'm also going to ask a few questions. So use the chat as a way to really communicate also with me. Okay, so let's start with the session. It's about the art of winning pitches and also the science behind it. When I talk about pitching, indeed, pitching is something which comes back in almost every part of doing business. It is the conversation you have at the coffee corner. It's the 10 minutes formal time you have in an executive meeting. It's the usual weekly team meetings with your employees. It's the phone call to one of the decision makers before the meeting. So it's pitches in front of business angels, venture capitalists. So the skill of pitching is something really, really used in many, many aspects of doing business. not only as an entrepreneur, but also as an employee, as an executive, as a global leader. You will have to learn the skills of pitching. I'm doing this on a daily basis. I also have to pitch quite a lot. My job is, I'm a professor at the Antwerp Management School, a professor in innovation and entrepreneurship. I conduct research on several topics, but also would like to pass the word through to many people all around the world on the topics that we're doing research on the topics that we are investigating. But of course, I worked with many entrepreneurs over the last 20 years, and I sometimes saw entrepreneurs doing amazing things, having amazing ideas, but then the pitch comes, and then sometimes this idea falls apart, falls on the ground, and the momentum is lost. So a pitch can really open up the conversation, can really help you to get in, to get money in, to get interest in whatever your goal is. And that was a little bit of a frustration for me, that you work a lot with these entrepreneurs, but in the end, the pitch is not good and the idea is not being taken up. So I'm a scientist, so I looked into the science behind pitching, and what I found was pretty remarkable. I saw that the last couple of years, there's a lot of research on pitching. Unfortunately, this research is oftentimes locked into academic research, and these papers, these journals are not accessible to people all around the world. So that was my reason to write a book on it, that is accessible to many people around the world and which has also this academic backing. My question now to you, and I see that there are questions coming up, which is really good. At the end of the session, we have time to dive deep into your questions. Yeah. But now I have a question, first of all, to start for you. What are your biggest challenges when you are pitching new ideas? So you can use a chat to do that. So I'm looking forward to see what are your biggest challenges that you have when you are actually pitching your new ideas. Let's take a moment to see what people are writing down in the chat.
Okay, meanwhile, I got in one of the personal window, I got an answer stating understanding the client requirement.
Okay, yeah. That's important. That's an important starting point of every pitch, that you understand what the audience indeed want.
Sure. Yes, folks,
other things
you can actually drop in there, or you can drop into me. Yes, do that. Okay, there's an interesting answer. Fear of losing.
Fear of losing, yeah. The fear, and sometimes also the nerves that you have when you have to pitch. I'm going to also tackle it today. Yeah, that's a good one. So probably if you think about it, you have quite some challenges. If you're pitching, if you're used to pitching, you will see that there are some challenges when you have to pitch. And we will tackle a few of them also today. What I use in my book, I developed the 4 P's of pitching. So 4 P's that are important to keep in the back of your mind when you're preparing a pitch, when you're conducting a pitch. That's profile, that's plan, that's proof, and that is performance. So 4 P's that are very good and very important to keep in mind. These are the 4 P's that we're going to discuss today. That's going to be the structure of today's session. So the first one is your pitching profile. Maybe not the first thing that you think about, but a very important thing. First of all, I would like you, before you go into a pitch, to understand what is your why. Most people are very good in explaining what they are going to do and how they're going to do it. But when you really want to make connection with people, you need to work on the why. Why are you doing it? And the better you understand your why, the better you can make a connection with the audience in front of you. So think about your why, and maybe also think about your personal why. When you're developing an idea, why is this an idea that you want to put into the markets, that you want to bring to the table? What is the connection between the idea, maybe the problem setting, and you? If you can make this connection, you can already show that you're very committed to this idea. And probably to work out this idea, you will go through ups and downs. If you're not motivated, if you're not committed personally to the idea, then of course people are going to judge that it's going to be a bumpy and difficult ride. So if you can put that in your pitch somehow, the personal connection between you, your personal why, and the challenge in front of you, then you're already scoring points. What I also mean with the pitching profile is to understand, who am I as a pitcher? Did you ever see yourself pitching? Did you ever record yourself, by the way? Or because you can learn a lot of things by doing that. Another point, did you ever got reliable feedback on one of your pitches? So these are two important questions. Try to collect some information over the years so that you know who you are as a pitcher, and you also know where you might want to improve your pitching profile. Another thing is, you might have role models. There might be people in your company where you say, okay, this person, when he's pitching, I'm really a fan of him or her. So what is it that he or she is doing that you like a lot? So you can analyze, or start to analyze, your role models. Maybe your role models are international. Maybe they have pitches which you can see on different platforms like YouTube or other platforms that you guys are using. Maybe you can see the pitches there. You have the Shark Tank type of pitches. Maybe there are pitches that you like a lot. So try to also learn from your role models to really shape your pitching profile. So that was the first pitching profile. Think about your personal why and make a connection between your personal why and the problem in front of you. Inject your own DNA, make it a unique pitch, and define your role in the pitch, but also your role models that might give you inspiration of what you like when you are crafting a pitch. The second P is the pitching plan. Pitching plan goes down to making a plan for your pitch, thinking about the different components, and also thinking about the flow in which you want to present those different components. But you need to know, if you're pitching, how would you start your pitch? What would be the first thing that you do in the pitch? Any ideas also from you? Again, the same mechanism. Please look into the chat, post your ideas on how you would start a pitch. So let's see, let's give you a few seconds time to put something in the chat. If you have any ideas on how you would start your pitch, please share them with us. If not, really reflect first of all on this important question. How would you start? What you want to do in the beginning of your pitch is really right away get the attention of your audience, of the people in front of you. And you can do that by really coming back to the two important components of every idea.
Well,
Two,
I got one answer.
yeah,
It says understand what a client is already facing challenges with regard to that product,
yeah.
with regard to that idea.
So that's already good. The challenges, the problems that he or she is experiencing, that's a great starting point. Because if you look at every strong idea, it has two components.
Mhm.
It has a problem, opportunity, a need, whatever you call it, on the one hand, and a solution on the other hand. That's the basis. That's really the core of every strong business case, of every strong business plan. It's that problem and the solution. So a great way indeed is to start with the problem setting. Some pitches start with a solution, but that's not a logical flow, right? If you first explain what you're going to do, then most people think, okay, why does it matter? Why would we need this type of solution? So it's much better to first start with the problem and then move into the solution. Two important components to start with when you are pitching. And you can do that in different ways. You can show pictures with one number, really explaining the key of your problem, the 53% in my slide, for instance, or one picture which already shows what the problem is. A picture can say more than 1,000 words, so that is really, really important. Another way of starting could be by a story that you tell of Walter, who is a process engineer and does these tasks on a daily basis, and something happens, a big problem, a big challenge that you want to take on. So that's more the approach of the use cases. Some other people start that pitch by asking questions so that the problem becomes clear. So these are different approaches that you can take to start off with the pitch. The most important thing to remember is the fact that you start with the problem setting. That creates an easy emotional connection with your audience. Sometimes you pitch and then your boss or the investors will say, interesting idea, and they put it on the table or on a table with all the other ideas. And maybe this year it will not work, maybe come back next year, those kind of typical feedback. If you get this type of feedback, there's something you did wrong in your pitch. And that's, you didn't create a sense of urgency. So when you're presenting the problem, you need to create a sense of urgency. And if you don't know how to do this, I have a few questions for you. What are the external reasons for the need to change? Based on which facts do we say that there is a problem? And why now? That question is really important. Why now? Why should people invest in you today and not tomorrow? Why should your boss accept the idea today and not tomorrow? Why now? If you can answer that question really well in your pitch, you're creating sense of urgency, and people will not say, okay, maybe next year. Another good question is, what are the risks if we do nothing? If you can also answer that question in your pitch, you're creating sense of urgency. So we're starting our pitch with the problem setting. And then, of course, after the problem, we want to say, okay, no worries, we have the solution. And the solution, what you need to do is when you present the solution, you also shouldn't forget to show what is the delta. If you are using the solution, what is the difference with the situation before you were using this, the solution? What is the improvement? What is, in other words, the impact of your solution? So sometimes you did pilots, sometimes you experimented with the solution. Use the data here to show the delta of your solution. Also, especially for the engineers and the PhDs among us, they tend to dive too deep into the technical details. And especially if you're talking about a business pitch, convincing investors and so on, you don't want to go too deep into the technical details. So try to visualize how the solution works. Try to show off with your technical knowledge, not necessarily in the pitch, because it can kill the flow of your story, but rather in the Q&A. So think about what is the level of technical detail that I have to put in my pitch, and what could be potential questions in the Q&A afterwards that you can tackle once the pitch is done. And then you can shine with your technological knowledge. Use analogies if needed, and also try to explain the solution and how you use a solution also in different steps on your slide. The problem solution, those two parts in the beginning of your pitch are the most important parts in a pitch. If people don't understand what the problem solution is, they will also don't understand all the other slides that you have with you, the financials and all the other things. They will not understand that if you don't understand the problem solution fit. So make sure to practice these slides. Make sure that even your grandmother, even people in your family will fully understand the problem solution fit. All right. But what are other essential parts? Think about it. What are the parts that we need in our pitch? Not only problem solution, they are the most important, but you also want to talk maybe about your go-to-market, about your business model, about your financials, the roadmap with the next steps, the team that is going to do this. By the way, it's always better to present the team at the back of your pitch. You can say in the beginning, hi, we're 4 people, this is, and the names, but the team and the background of the team, it makes more sense to put it at the end of the pitch. Why? Because people will first need to know what the challenge is, and then they can understand that this is the amazing team that has the right competences to conduct this and to take on this challenge. If you first present the team, then it's of course very difficult to understand why this team, because you don't understand the challenge. So keep that also in the back of your mind. Don't forget the closing of a pitch. Everybody thinks about the beginning, but you can also close your pitch in a very powerful way. Some people say, okay, this is the last slides. Are there any questions? That's not the way to end your pitch, right? You want to end your pitch with a strong message, maybe repeating your mission or giving a short summary. This is a problem, this is a solution, and this is a team that is going to make it work. Thank you. That's a much powerful way to close your pitch. Last, and one of the last things that I want to say about the pitching plan is that it is never just a checklist. It's not our problem, solution, go to market. Yes, we ticked all the boxes. No, you want to try to make a storyline. For instance, I experienced this problem firsthand. And I found out that many employees in our company are struggling with it. So we're on a mission to build a solution. And this is how it works. That's creating a flow in between the different slides that you have. So it's important, I said it in the beginning, if you explain the problem, you might do it with telling a story. Well, why am I pushing you a little bit to tell stories in your pitch? Research shows that stories are up to 22 times more memorable than facts alone. Facts are also important in your pitch, but the stories are what people remember afterwards from your pitch. So please also think about how can you implement stories in your pitch. Don't exaggerate. You can also have too much storytelling, which in the end is like a very nice LinkedIn post with not so many substance behind it, not so many facts and proof behind it, which is also not what you want. So you need to have a little bit of balance there. So pitching plan, what we can conclude is that we need to identify the key components of our pitch. You need to think about the problem and the solution. You need to also think about, is the problem and solution clear and impactful? And don't only think about the opening of your pitch, but also the closing of your pitch. Structure and prioritize information and having a logical flow where you focus on the essence, not to go too deep into the technological knowledge, but really focus on the essence. Build a story. Think about how can I bring storytelling into my pitch. The third P is the pitching proof. What do I mean with this? Well, actually, when you're presenting in front of investors, presenting in front of an executive committee, it's always the same game. You're presenting a new idea, so it means there's a lot of uncertainty around the new idea. So what you need to do is try to do your research. Try to research what are the key assumptions that we take around our idea. Test those assumptions. Make sure your pitch is backed by research, because the more key assumptions we test, the less uncertainty, less discussion there will be around your case, and the more likely investors, C-level, whatever it is, will choose you. So it's a little bit the game that we're playing. We're trying to lower down the uncertainty to the level that people want to jump in and people want to invest in your case. That's the game that we're playing. So what is important when we do research is that we bring this research into our pitch. We want to avoid vague statements like, we will save money and time. But what does that mean? Is it 1% of money and time that you are saving, or is it 30% of money and time? That's a huge difference for an investor. People want to put money into your case, and they also need to understand what exactly is going to be the impact that you will have with the project. If you say the market will grow significantly, well, how significantly? Do you have any results, any predictions, any key facts that you can put into your pitch? So we want to avoid these vague statements. We might, maybe, hopefully, the more of these statements you have, the more immature your pitch will come across. Of course, you need to be honest also. If you really don't know the answer, you need to be honest about that, because sooner or later, investors, C-level, will find out, and then, of course, you're in big trouble. So really think about how can you put the key numbers into your pitch and quantify your arguments. I like the principle of show, don't tell. You can tell how amazing your idea is, or you can show it. Showing it is a lot more powerful. So you can show it by bringing numbers on the table. You can show it by using graphs rather than tables. Quotes on the slide, quotes of people who used your products, partners where you have the first partnerships with, who can tell a little bit about what they think about your product and so on. Or the most convincing maybe is to have demos of your products, physical objects or digital visualizations, a movie showing how it works, showing reactions of customers and so on. That could also be a very powerful way to show how good your idea is and not only just telling it. So pitching proof is a third important P. So do your research, make sure you can have some numbers in your pitch which can back up your arguments. Show, don't tell. So present key numbers using graphs, visualizations, demonstrating really the impact of the product. And of course, the last point that I didn't touch upon till now is know your stuff. There's nothing as more painful if somebody asks, what is that number and where does it come from? And you can't give an answer. So everything that you put on the slide, make sure that you master it, make sure that you understand it, make sure that you come across as a knowledgeable person, because that is really important. So that's the third P, pitching proof. The last P is pitching performance. That's really when you're actually up there, when you're pitching in front of an audience or in front of a jury or in front of investors. There are a few components of a good pitch performance. First of all, very important, eye contact. Most people, when they are presenting, they have some kind of relationship with the slides, and they're looking at the screen the entire time, and they're talking like this, which doesn't create an connection with your audience. So eye contact is really important. What I tend to do is I try to really split my audience in 4 quadrants, and I try to have equal amount of eye contact with each quadrant. That already helps, I think. Secondly, have a friendly expression, a smile, a relaxed attitude. Sometimes when I see people pitching, I'm like, so sorry I put you in front of the audience. I'm so sorry you have to come here and pitch today. So that's not the feeling you want to give to your audience, right? So the friendly expression, smile, relaxed attitude is also really important. Third thing is what I'm using already a lot today is my hands to explain things. The body language also has a huge impact of how you bring a message across. Some people simply like to sit down, or some people like to walk around, which also makes a huge difference in your body language in bringing a message across. Last but not least, and I'm slowing down a little bit here, is what is on the slide, the speed of speech. It's the tempo in your presentation. Overall, we want to have a good tempo, which is not too slow so that people are not falling asleep, which is not too fast so that people can really pick up your key arguments. And you can play a little bit with your tempo. You can slow down when you want to make a key point, and you can speed up when it's not necessarily a very important point. So play a little bit with the tempo also of your pitch is also an important guideline. And I'm not just making this up. There's a lot of research behind it. There's something like the 7% rule of communication, which actually says if we want to bring a message across, we do it only 7% with words, 55% with body language, and 38% with the tone of our voice. And if you do it online, it becomes even more important. So they did this research in many contexts, and of course sometimes the words had a higher percentage, but overall it still shows the importance of the tone of voice, of body language, not only the content and the words that you're bringing to the table. Another point that was already raised in the beginning of my talk today was that you might have some stress when you have to present. Well, there are a few guidelines here. First of all, know your material. Practice your pitch, build up confidence. The more you do that, the less stressed you will be at the moment itself. You can also manage your emotions up front. You can frame it. Tomorrow I have a pitch with an investor, and it's going to be the most important moment for my startup company. If we don't succeed, then it's going to mean the end of our startup almost. Or you could frame it as a more positive learning experience where you say, tomorrow we have a pitch with an investor and we can learn a lot from their feedback that will help us to create an even better pitch. And maybe, who knows, they will already invest in us. So framing your emotions up front will also have a huge impact of how people, of how you will experience the pitch and the stress behind the pitch. Change also your perspective on stress and on nerves, because you will need to have some stress. If you believe that, you will change your perspective on having stress. You will need to have a certain amount of stress to be focused, to go for it. So that is important. In my book, I'm also explaining a lot of physical exercises that you can do to lower your stress. And another thing that I would also advise you to do, if you get 10 minutes or 15 minutes, don't use the full 50 minutes of your pitch. Use 40 minutes or 30 minutes so that you're more relaxed and you can, you're not really stuck on a certain script that you have to follow, right? Sometimes people also tend to have like papers in front of them and are reading from the papers. Don't do that. I'm not a fan of that. Just you're the person behind the idea. You know the idea so well. Just tell it from your heart and present it that way. Don't be stuck to a script too hard, where every sentence is written down. Don't do that. Say it in your own words. That is more authentic and will create a better connection. If you're using slides, don't use these type of slides. Don't look at the content. It doesn't matter. This is really, don't use complex figures or too much text on your slide. You need to know that human beings, whether they come from India or they come from Belgium, they have a limited processing capabilities. They can't process a lot of information. So keep your slides much more simple than your business, your actually business plan or whatever you have. So this is on the performance, on how you act, and then the pitch is done. And then most of the times you have a moment where there's Q&A. Well, use also and prepare the Q&A wisely. First of all, listen to the entire question. Most of the times people come out of the pitch are full of energy, adrenaline. Somebody asks a question and you know the answer. So you interrupt that person and you didn't listen to the entire question. Don't do that. Take 10 minutes for 10 seconds for yourself. Listen carefully to the entire question. And then the second point, it's not a rocket science here. The second point is answer the question, which often people also don't do. Third, do not attack the questioner. If it's your own idea, of course, you're working already on the idea for many years, maybe. You are almost married with this idea. And then there's someone in the audience, in the jury, an investor who's very critical for your idea. Don't be too defensive because people will also judge whether you are a nice person to work with, whether you are coachable, whether you will take up feedback. So keep that also in the back of your mind. Most people say, oh, Q&A, we can't prepare. I'm saying you can prepare Q&A. You can ask, that's often what we do. You can ask the 4 founders to each come up with the 10 questions that you expect after the pitch. And then put these questions together and see which are the questions that are coming back. So probably these are also going to be questions that are being asked. A high chance that you get these questions. Or nowadays we have AI. You can put your pitch in AI. You can ask AI what is the questions that we can expect. So that's preparation of the Q&A. What you can also do is develop go-to messages. These are messages that you want to bring across in the Q&A whenever it fits, and you can prepare them also in advance. The same thing with backup slides. Sometimes it might be good to have some backup slides at the end of the presentation to really show a little bit of more content, numbers behind your arguments. Last thing, yeah? Professor?
was fascinated with that word, humble arrogance. Can you tell me what exactly?
Humble arrogance. Well, it's actually saying a little bit that you need to have some balance between defending what you put forward, but also not to the extent that you become super arrogant and difficult to work with. So it's a little bit of a balance between defending the key arguments of your pitch, of your idea, but also doing it in a more humble way that you show that you are a person which is open for feedback and which is coachable. So it's a little bit of a balance there.
Got you.
Okay. And of course, when we're pitching, we might not do it alone. We might do it in team. So have a clear role division there. Show your team. Most people and most investors like to see the entire founding team up front when they're pitching. And most of the times we can directly see how the atmosphere is in your team. Like a famous guitar player, Keith Richards, would say, you can't fake chemistry. You see it immediately how the team fits together. And even if you're not presenting, if you're not talking, you're also presenting. Because you're sitting there, you can distract the presentation. You can also show some expressions on your face, which also impacts how your team comes across. So keep that also in the back of your mind. So this is everything about the fourth P, the pitching performance. Go beyond words. There's body language, tone of voice, express the drive and the passion when you're pitching. If you're already pitching with low energy and low drive, how can people think that you will bring this idea to the next level if you're already pitching with low energy and low drive? Leverage your slides, make them simple so that people understand them, can process them, and also have a great harmony between what you're saying and what is shown on the screen. You can do that like I'm doing now with animations. Perform as a team, so coordinate, have a clear role division, and master and prepare the interaction, the Q&A. There's always one more thing when we are pitching and when we're presenting. We already had the 4 Ps by now, but there's one more thing, and that is really the context of pitching. What do I mean with this? Sorry. So you have 4 elements which also determine the 4 Ps of pitching. That's your audience. Who are you pitching in front of? That's the idea. How innovative or how technological is the idea? That will have an impact on the 4 Ps. The tech era where we are, we're now in the AI era, which has a big impact on the 4 Ps. And also the place where we're pitching. If we're pitching in the US, in Europe, in Asia, in India, where are we pitching? That also affects greatly how a pitch comes across. I'm going to focus on one thing, is know your audience, and that was already said in one of the comments in the beginning of the session. Know your audience is really important. So do a little bit of research on your audience. And these questions might guide your research a little bit. Who are they? Who is in the jury? Who is the investor that is going to judge us? What do they know? What do they want, expect, and are looking for? What do you have in common? And what are their doubts, fears, and misperceptions? So if you know these questions from your audience, you can really make a pitch that really fits really with your audience, and that is a winning pitch in the end. So then we're coming at the end of my session. So these are the 4 Ps of pitching: your pitching profile, your pitching plan, your pitching proof, and your pitching performance. These are 4 P's that I would definitely keep in the back of your mind when you are preparing yourself for the next pitch. So thank you already for listening, and I'm more than happy to take on all your questions.
Wonderful. So I already received quite a set of questions, which I would love to take on behalf of the students, Professor Robin.
Yeah.
Here you go, the first one. In your experience, what are some of the most common mistakes that entrepreneurs make in the pitches?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Few of is that you want to tell everything that you know in 3 minutes or 10 minutes time. Don't do that. Don't use a maximum amount of time even, and really simplify your pitch. Really make it simple so people can directly understand the basic message of your pitch. If they want to know more, there's always a Q&A, and they can also always ask questions along the way and go deeper. So I would say simplify your pitch is really simplify your slides. Your message is really an important thing to do. Yeah, most people make their pitch way too complex, which means that people will not pick it up, don't understand it, and will disconnect from your pitch, which is something we want to avoid.
Lovely. In your session, you did mention about the storytelling part of it. So here I have a question on that. In today's competitive startup ecosystem, how can entrepreneurs balance storytelling and data to create a persuasive winning pitch?
Yeah. So you need to know a little bit when you're using storytelling and when you bring the data and the hard facts. It's indeed a balance between the two. So it's a very good question. You need to balance those 2 things definitely in a pitch. Storytelling is always a good thing to open up your pitch by a story that maybe comes back throughout your pitch. Maybe you end also with the story, right? So the beginning and the end of your pitch are good moments where you can use storytelling. At a certain point of time, you want to talk numbers, you want to bring data to the table, and that's oftentimes more in the middle of your pitch. So that's how you might want to balance a little bit storytelling and data in a winning pitch.
Lovely. Robin, if you could stop the screen share, we would be able to see you much better.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. Let's do that.
We can see you on the big screen.
Yeah.
Here you go. Yes.
Okay.
All right. This is a continuation of the question 1. You answered this, but again, if you want to add on, how can we effectively use data and storytelling together in a pitch without overwhelming the audience with too much information?
Yeah, so you need to really think about what is it exactly from our data that will make a difference and that will convince people to join. So you don't need to explain all the data. You need to be critical and think about what are the key numbers. I explained that in the slide on the problem, for instance. One number can be enough to really show what the pain point is. So be really critical on the numbers that you're using. Also know that most of the times a pitch is part of a larger process of interactions where we can send, for instance, the entire financial plan and all the numbers are there. You don't have to really copy paste your financial plan in the slides. That doesn't work. You take out a few numbers from the financial plan and you put them in your pitch. And then in other interactions that you have with the investors, you can show the investment plan, you can show the financial plan, and you can go deeper there into the numbers. So that's how you need to see your pitch in a process of many interactions that you have with investors, with your boss, with whatever the context is.
Great. Just a question from my end. Know your audience is a very valid point, no doubt about it. But what if I am pitching my idea to a larger audience, a mass audience, and I have no clue who the audiences are? It can be a combination of all stakeholders. in that sense, how do I make my pitch?
Well, first, I would always push you to know something about the audience.
Right.
That with the questions I put on the slide, I would always push you to do that. But if you really don't know, then of course you might want to tell a little bit a more general story, leaving options in your pitch to go deeper for certain audiences. But I would always try to do my research on the audience. That will always help your pitch a lot. If you don't know it, you probably end up with a more general pitch, not really focused to the fears, to the misperceptions, to the really the strategic directions that your audience wants to go in. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, I mean, when you also make a pitch to the multiple stakeholders, you need to really align your pitch matching the particular stakeholder. So basically, the question is, how can you tailor a pitch for a different stakeholder?
Yeah. So first of all, again, do your research on these stakeholders, know them really well. If you're presenting in front of your boss C-level and it's maybe the director of supply chain, then you might want to ask the team members of who work for that director, how is he like? What does he prefer? What is the parts of a strategic plan that he finds really important? Those kind of questions will really dive deep into the stakeholder and understand what he or she wants. So do your research on that. And if there are different stakeholders, you might want to do that for the different stakeholders. And you might want to see, is there a common factor between all these stakeholders that I really need to put forward? And depending on your research, you might want to focus a little bit more on that stakeholder versus the other. But think about what is the common factor between those different stakeholders based on your research that you do.
Perfect. Very well, sir. This is the question directly on the title of the talk that we have outlined today. What is the difference between the art and the science of pitching?
A really good question. I never thought about that part. So yeah, I really need to think about it. But I think the art is the more creative part of it. The art is you putting your own creativity into the pitch, going maybe beyond AI, because what I see today is all AI crafted pitches, and they all tend to look the same. So really a message is to use your own creativity, your own DNA to make a unique pitch to stand out. So that's maybe the art part. The science part is, of course, the less emotional, the more hard, the facts, the research that you've been doing and that you put into your pitch, and that you're looking into, okay, what does science say that works to convince people, rather than your own sauce that you put over it, which is, I think, more the art part of it.
Very well, sir. Great. So when presenting high stakes ideas, how do you balance confidence with authenticity so that you don't come across as overly rehearsed?
Yeah. You don't want to be that. You need to have some kind of structure in mind where you say, okay, I want to move from that slide to that slide, and that's something you need to know. But the exact wordings and so on, tell it in your own words. Like I said before, if you tell it in your own words, you will come across as someone very authentic. And if you're coming across maybe less confident, well, confidence mainly has to do with the fact that you know your numbers, you know the market really well, you really have control over this idea, you know how to produce the products, you know all the details behind your idea, then you will come across as being very confident. And if you want to balance it with authenticity, then I think it's really important to not have a pitch where you know already exact every word in advance. So I think that is a good way to balance those two things.
Great. Yes, Good question. I like this question. If I'm pitching it for the very first time, what is that mindset you expect me to have before I enter the audience?
The mindsets that you need to have, if you do it for the first time, is probably a learning mindset, that you want to really learn, that you want to improve, that you have the energy, the drive to do that. And that in itself, even if you're not super knowledgeable, can already attract investors. This is a nice person. I like to work with this person. This person has energy, drive, wants to learn really quickly. Even though he or she doesn't know everything, this is a person that I like to work with. And also investors are looking for people where they can add some of their experience to them. If they already know everything, well, what's then the added value of the investor? So that can the learning mindset, I think, is a really good mindset to bring with you, together with the energy and the drive, really the eagerness to learn. I think it's a really important mindset.
That's great because, at this point of time, when it's your first pitch, there's always a tendency of fear in your mind. So I think
Yeah.
that was very well quoted.
Yeah.
How can innovation be clearly communicated to non-technical investors?
So you mean technological innovation, probably? Yeah, I think visualizing it, how it exactly works, and showing the benefits of the technology is much more important than all the little technical detail of how it works. So the benefits, what does it bring to the table in terms of business benefits, is more important. You put that in the pitch, and then people will, even if they don't have a technological background, will understand what the technology is capable to do, what are the benefits. That is something normally people, even if they have a non-technological background, need to understand. If then there are even people with technical background in your audience, they probably will ask you questions in the Q&A, and then you can shine with all your technological knowledge that you have. But I would do it, really organize it like this.
True, very true. This is a very interesting question. I'm sure you would appreciate it. How do you pitch when your idea is not unique, but your execution is strong?
That's a really good. We already had many good questions, but this is also a really good one. I need to solve some questions. I need to think about even. But if it's not unique, then your execution is maybe unique or strong. And I think that is maybe something you want to play out. When your execution is strong, you need to show why this will be the case, because most of the times you're talking about the future. So why are you a person that is good in executing? And I think investors are looking into that. They most of the times have more difficulty to invest in first-time founders. So if you are not a first-time founder, play that out also. Talk about the businesses that you already set up. Talk about the MVP that you managed to build in no time. Also show that you were a talent magnet, that you were able to hire people. Those kind of things really show in your pitch that you're very good in execution. And even if your idea is then not unique, people will tend to choose you because you're so strong and you're proving that you're really strong in executing it. But also in execution, for instance, using a good business model, you can be very innovative, very unique. So there's also some in the go-to-market plan that you put forward, you can be super unique and innovative. So there is some room to be also very unique in presenting the execution.
So this is my question to you. Just answering, taking that question ahead. Execution happens in the second stage, right? It all begins with an idea. So is it really easy to convince about your execution when your idea itself is not unique?
It's more difficult, of course. Yeah. You rather want to start with something which is already very unique. It is true that it's more difficult, but in the end, investors are also looking into, okay, maybe the idea is not unique, but if you can prove that your execution is much stronger than competitors who already have this idea, then you're also showing your competitive or potential competitive advantage that you have. And in the end, that is what investors are interested in. They want to see you winning the market, whether it is with a unique idea or with a strong execution. That doesn't matter in the end. So if you can prove your execution is much stronger than the competitors with the same idea, then you also could potentially have a winning pitch.
Great. This seems like a general question, but I am sure you can take it up. What skills should management students focus on to succeed globally?
But I'm already a little bit biased. I would say pitching skills are really important, but I wrote a book on pitching, of course. But communication skills, pitching skills are definitely one of the things. Being able, of course, to work with different cultures. I think at our business school and probably also at your business school, we learn a lot how to work with different cultures. People coming from the US, people from Europe, from Asia. They all have different ways of doing business. So as a management student, it's not only important to have the communication skills, but also maybe to know and understand different cultures, different habits that people tend to have. That's something we're also working on pretty hard in our business school. And then, of course, besides that, you need to know a little bit of how economies work, how you need to have a bit of the content, how innovation works, all the different aspects that are important for a manager, sales, all these things, all these domains, the content behind it, of course, you need to also master. Yeah.
Lovely. We are on bang on time. I would take up the last question of the day.
Okay.
How
Cool.
can early stage startups pitch without strong financials?
Yeah, good question. I think the most important thing is to prove that you have a problem solution fit and that the product or the service that you have is actually working. And then most of the times investors can work out the financials together with you even. I have stories of startups coming from our schools, going to Silicon Valley, for instance, in the US, and pitching there only with the products, only showing that the product works, nothing on the financials, and even raising money there. So in Europe, it's a different story. In Europe, I think it's more important to have financials in your slides to show that actually work. But investors also know that early stage startups can't show a lot of financials yet. Well, you can show them, but these are really predictions that are really, really hard to do. So I think you need to see the financials as, in Europe at least, a part that you have to add in your pitch. But in the end, it's much more important to dive into the problem solution fit and really show that you have this problem solution fit, and don't stress too much from the financials. Yeah.
Great. Lovely. I think bang on, we completed a beautiful session. Robin, the kind of question, the number of questions that received, that itself says how brilliant your interaction was. That speaks about it. Excellent, excellent. It served 100% of the objective that we had in our mind before inviting you for this particular session. And I'm so glad.
That's great.
I'm so glad that students also participated very actively with wonderful questions. So yes, I make a strong note, as you mentioned, it's all in the pitches. It's absolutely all in the pitches, and you said it very rightly when somebody asked you on the key skill that a management student should have is, of course, the art of pitching it. Great. So thank you so much, Professor Robin. It was indeed a pleasure and honor to have hosted you at this prestigious platform of IRE, powered by GIBS Business School. On behalf of all the students, faculties, and management team, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for your time, which was very, very, qualitative for all of us. And I'm very sure you also enjoyed interacting with our students. And I do not hesitate to make this point again, that I really look forward to have you on my campus very, very soon. It's going to be your second, and I'm sure the most memorable visit to India for sure. Right.
Okay, looking forward to that, and thank you all for inviting me, and thanking all for your intelligent questions, and good luck with your future pitches.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to all the audiences from the GIBS and the outside of the institution who have joined us for this talk. Thank you once again. And if you have not subscribed and liked us in our official social media channels, do like us and subscribe. GIBS Business School, GIBS IRE Talks. And my personal request, do follow Robin D. Cock in his LinkedIn. It's such a great learning for all of us through his profile. Yes, thank you everyone for joining this. This is Professor Guru Prasad signing off. Thank you. Bye, Robin.
Bye-bye.
Let's stay connected.